Hi, everybody. Welcome to Twinsburg Schools Today. I'm Dennis Sahetka from Community Focus, and yeah, when you see me in this chair, you know there is a special program coming on, and usually something to do with levies, and that's the case today. Today, we're going to have a discussion about the renewal levy in Twinsburg that will be on the May 4th ballot for residents of Twinsburg, Twinsburg Township, and Reminderville Village. Joining us in the discussion, Superintendent Kathi Powers and Treasurer Marty Aho. Thank you both for being here.
Hi, Dennis.
You know, we have a lot to cover, you guys, in only 29 minutes, so let's get right into it. Kathi, describe the renewal levy, what the funds will be used for, and why was there a need to put that on the ballot?
Well, the renewal levy actually will assist the district in continuing our educational programming for our students, professional development for staff. This is a renewal levy, and it's placed on the ballot. This particular type of levy is once every 10 years. It's approximately 10.4% of our annual budget, and so it's a significant portion. And imagine if you don't have 10.4% of your household budget, you would have to make significant cuts. The same is true here in the school district. We rely on these dollars to be able to support programming for the students.
Well, and we know that funding has been going down. We've lost tangible personal property tax. Marty, for the past 20 years, you know, state funding in Ohio has been ruled unconstitutional, and we're still at the same point. So can you give us a little history about that ruling and sort of walk us through the pitfalls that school districts have to tiptoe through in regards to, you know, loss in revenue, tangible personal property tax, also the effective tax rate, if you could explain that?
Sure, thank you. It was about 20 years ago, and it was called the DeRolf decision. Basically, that's when the Supreme Court said that funding in the state of Ohio is overly reliant on local property taxes, that it should be more of a shared responsibility of the state and the local governments, the local communities to fund the schools. So over the years, the state has looked at it, but there's been a couple of plans brought forth. Right now, there's a fair funding plan that it would make significant significant inroads to meeting this the Rolfe decision. Of course, it's getting hung up in the legislation. But it's been a long time. They've been throwing this back and forth over the years, and nothing's really changed. One of the things that did come out of the Rolfe decision was the rebuilding of a lot of school districts. They were able to use the tobacco settlement funds, and a lot of school districts were able to renovate or build new buildings that just didn't have the tax base to support building a new building. Some of the lower wealth districts. For Twinsburg, one of the things that is tough for us is, we lost the tangible personal property tax. A lot of the districts around this area had a significant investment in commercial property. Those investments, they were taxed at a rate that was a little bit different. Well, the government, the state of Ohio, back in about 2004, said that they were going to quit taxing the tax that was on furniture, fixtures, and big machinery. We had a Twinsburg Chrysler stamping plant down there, and that was all those big stamping machinery in there. That was one of the items that was being taxed. So they did away with the personal property tax, and they brought in what they call a commercial activity tax. So the time they say they were going to use that commercial activity tax to offset the loss of tangible personal property, but then over time they keep whittling it away, and it was $9.8 million at the time, and within a year or two from now it's going to be we will receive nothing in tangible personal property or cat tax. It'll be zero. So that $9.8 million is basically just evaporated, and we don't receive that revenue stream in any way. So that's kind of a tough thing for us to deal with over time. It's been slowly getting chipped away. So the next couple of years it will be zero. So of course there's then also the other piece that we have to deal with is the thing that's called House Bill 920. And what House Bill 920 is about was passed back like at the end, like right, I think it's 1976, around that time. And that was kind of the same time frame that if people remember was the Proposition 13 in California, where the property taxes in California were just going through the roof. They were skyrocketing. And so the people were saying, like, if our taxes were going up because the property values were going up so hugely, so immensely. Well, Ohio, of course, had to follow suit with California, and they've also passed what here is called House Bill 920. So whenever a property value increases because of inflation or reappraisal, school districts do not receive any extra funding out of that levy. So, even though as crazy as school funding is, I mean, I don't know who ever invented school funding, but they make it as crazy as they can, because when you try to explain it to people, they look at you like you got to be kidding me. But it is that crazy. One of the things with 920 is that, okay, your property tax could go up just a hair, but your neighbor's is going to go down. So it's like a bucket of water. We're still got to get that same, gallon of water, but this guy may have to put in a little more water than the other guy. So it's kind of on that frame that 920 works.
So when property taxes go up, in essence, you don't get cost of living increases in your revenue, yet you still have cost of living expenditures.
Yeah, that's correct. We receive no inflationary increases. There is little tiny bit of what's called inside millage that does increase over time, but everything else just stays the same. No extra funding for, to cover inflationary costs. We're not like a city that gets income tax that grows over time with inflation, or the state or county that receives sales tax that'll also increase. Our property tax dollars do not increase.
All right, it's a complicated issue. I understand that. I don't want to spend the whole time on that, but I do want to know, Kathi, you're in contact with superintendents around the state. Marty, you're in contact with treasurers and state officials. Are there lobbying efforts going on right now, and from superintendents, from boards of education? What's going on, and do you see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel for changes?
Well, currently there's the fair funding proposal that is at the State House. The legislators are discussing that. And that is drilled down to what it actually costs to educate a child in Ohio. This has been a conversation for many years, and there's great hope that there may be some movement in the fair funding proposal. But as Marty and I will often say, until the dollars are in the account, we can't count on anything as a certainty. So we appreciate the efforts of our legislators and the leaders in Columbus, and we're hopeful for some relief because the current system is unconstitutional as it's set up. It's been proven over time. And that is what makes school districts so reliant on property tax because the state funding model isn't really working for all school districts.
Well, you mentioned cost per pupil. It's probably time to say, what is the cost per pupil in Twinsburg City School District, and how does that compare to neighboring districts?
Yeah, one of the things we've been able to do is to hold those costs down over time. For Twinsburg, our cost per pupil is like around $12,300, which is actually lower than the state average and lower than similar districts. The state average is $12,600, so we're about $300 below that. And then many of our neighbors are $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 per pupil. So of course, we're well below that. So we've really, kept an eye on our costs. We've watched where we spend what our dollars are. And we've done, I think a heck of a job at keeping the costs down. And actually, below state average. I think that's quite an accomplishment.
Well, you have been very proactive in Twinsburg. Look, this was no surprise. I mean, you knew taxes, cuts were coming from the state, and you've been making preparations in that area. Kathi, talk about some of the changes you've made in anticipation of losing some of these funds.
For years now, and this dates back to the 2011-12 school year, the Board of Education was very aware of the loss of tangible personal property tax and the CAT tax, and the development of the operational change plan at that point in time really focused our efforts on making sure that we continued to provide excellent opportunities for students, but that we were very careful in the expenditures. We spend a lot of time in trying to balance the dollars here. Marty does a great job of all the things that happen behind the scenes financially for the school district, and I work in tandem with him, and so does the rest of the administrative team. When we propose to the Board of Education an additional staff member, there's a system of checks and balances that has to happen. There's a justification of the need that drives the request. And so everything that we propose to the board goes through our internal filters, because really with all of the reductions at the state, local, and national level, we have to make sure that the dollars that we have here are being used for the right things to support all the students that go to school here. And as over time, our programming had to change to support the students who are 21st century learners. We knew that harnessing technology was going to be important, but boy, this pandemic has proven the fact that never could we have imagined how reliant we have become on those Chromebooks. And so thankfully, in all of this planning, and because of the support of our community, we have had the financial wherewithal to support students in their learning of the 21st century during a pandemic. And we're very grateful to our residents for supporting the last renewal effort in 2019. And now this one comes on the heels of that one a couple years later, obviously. But it's not a surprise, because for years now, we've been working against something called the district's financial strategic planning flow chart. And so on that document, Marty has committed where the levies are coming up to be renewed, where we have negotiations for both of our union groups here in the district, how tangible personal property tax is declining over time. And so we've been able to track where the district is going, and we've been pretty transparent in putting that information out to the residents and to our parents so that there aren't any surprises. When you're on the ballot, that's a big deal for a school district, but we want to say that we've been talking about this now. Gosh, I've been here 10 years, so at least for 10 years, I know in my time, the financial picture has been as transparent as it possibly can be, and that's being driven by Marty in the Treasurer's office. He just really does a great job making sure that we're paying attention to that bottom line.
Well, we appreciate the transparency, and we love doing a show monthly where you highlight some things, but also talk about the real issues that community members and parents want to hear. Can you break down the current expenditures and revenues for us in the district?
Sure. The school districts, we are a service industry, so most of what we spend is on people. We have teachers, bus drivers, cooks, all the staff, the custodial staff. A lot of people takes a lot of hands. They say a village. Well, we pretty much almost have our own village here at the Twinsburg schools. So our salaries are about 62% of our expenditures, and then our benefits are another 23%. So we're looking at about 85% of our costs are directly involved, in paying salaries of people and their salaries and benefits. Then we have a small percentage of like 11% is purchase services, and that would be for things, like utilities, bus fuel, things that you need to purchase, legal services, some of the deductions that the ODE makes comes through those 400 object codes. And then we have 2% for supplies, and then 3% for others, 2% for others. Others are some of the deductions that we get. Summit County charges us to collect the property taxes. So some of those fees are deducted from those dollars. So, but there again, the majority of what we spend our dollars on are for staffing, for teachers and the like.
Now, you were already ahead of the ball game when the pandemic came. Kathi, you had, instituted that blended learning model and had already had Chromebooks in, but there still was a cost associated with the pandemic. Has the state given school districts COVID relief funds?
Yes, and Marty can talk to the specifics of that. We've received CARES Act funding as well as we anticipate ESSER funding. And yes, we were thankfully moving forward with our blended learning initiative, and the board had supported the purchase of Chromebooks. We were working through our plan, and the high school students and the middle school students were introduced to Chromebooks in a pretty good way, along with professional development for teachers in grades 4 through 12. Then the pandemic hit, and boy, did we have to pivot out to remote teaching and learning pretty quickly last March. And thankfully, because of the institution of the Chromebook initiative, we were ready to move forward. But clearly, the funds were thought through. We had a strategic plan for the spending for the blended learning initiative, but we had to pretty much fast forward the purchase of those items. And so we used our CARES Act funding for the purchase of the Chromebooks so that right now all students from preschool all the way to grade 12 have a district-issued Chromebook if their parents would like them to. Some parents prefer to purchase their own laptop or their own Chromebook, and that's absolutely fine. But for every student who needed one, we were able to purchase one for the children so that every student has the technology they need. Further, we had to hire additional staffing. When you talk about social distancing of 6 feet, our classrooms had to be reconfigured. We moved 12 grade bands of students to different locations. For residents who may not know, right now, Twinsburg High School does not house my high school students. Instead, it houses students in grades 2 through 6. So we had to move grade bands of students last summer to prepare for the 2021 school year. And the other big piece to the initialization of this year was professional development for our staff, because even though we did a great job in remoting out in March of 2020, we learned a lot of lessons, and we recognized that there were some skills that we had to help teachers build, tools for their toolkit in understanding the virtual platform. And really, even if you're on campus, how do you use those Chromebooks to the benefit of the instructional piece in your classroom? And so we're grateful that we received additional funding to support all of that, plus the additional personal protective equipment that we needed, the sprayers and the gloves and all of the signage that you see all over the district reminding everyone about health and safety protocols. So yes, we did receive some funding, and we are grateful for that funding because it was very expensive, and it continues to be expensive as of today, especially in the area of staffing and personnel.
Well, we talk about lost funds. Marty, where do you make up the revenue? And what have the discussions been with the Board of Education? You currently have a surplus, so tell me about that. And are there avenues, and are you permitted to invest that money? And has the board talked about the possibility of an income tax? I mean, if things go the way they've been going over the last 20 years, do you see a day where schools will be funded by income tax in addition to property tax in Ohio?
Schools are permitted to do an income tax. They passed that law several years ago. Typically, it's more favorable in the rural counties where the farmers have big tracts of land. They don't want to be paying property taxes on their, acres and acres of property. They'd rather, if they have a good year and the crops come in right, and they're good with money, they'd rather pay an income tax as opposed to paying a property tax. So it's more favorable in the rural areas of the state. But it's starting to, show itself in other areas also. Some other districts, have passed have passed the income taxes too.
Now,
that's
is that in addition to property tax, or does that replace property tax?
It would be an addition. It would be extra. Or you can, if you wanted to, do some combinations, you can do that. Some places have reduced property taxes and put an income tax on. So there are options to do, different things like that. Currently, like you said, we do have a surplus. We've been careful with our dollars over the years, knowing that our tangible personal property tax is going away. So we've been using those dollars and not spending them. Obviously we're not spending them because our expenditures are a little bit better than state average. We could have spent those dollars and not had a surplus, but we did build up the surplus knowing, that it's, the time to save is when the basket's full. So, we were able to save some of those dollars, and it's really been fortunate that we have. It's helped us get through this pandemic. We were able to bring on extra hands to help, spread the classrooms out and things like that. So it's really been a great thing that we've had some extra dollars that we can do that. During this, at the end of 2020 school year, the state of Ohio cut us $600,000. So, we lost $600,000 from state funding from the foundation piece. So, we were able to make that up with our surplus that we have. So we've been able to, weather some storms because we've been able to have a surplus balance.
Well, I knew time was going to go fast, and I hate to even bring this up. A reminder, this is a renewal levy. So this is no new taxes for anybody in Twinsburg Township, or Reminderville Village. But I hate to bring it up, but Kathi, what happens if it doesn't pass?
Well, if it doesn't pass, we'll have to make some tough decisions about the operations here in the school district, because the dollars that are gained from the renewal levy pay for the operations. And so when you think about, $5 million in reductions, that's a significant amount. The operational change plan was far less than that, and it had a great impact to the school district. So, we really have been so very grateful to the support of our residents over so many years, and we recognize that times are tough, times are tight, but at the same time we request that for consideration for issue 6, which is our $5 million renewal levy, because with those dollars our students can continue to enjoy all of the awesome opportunities that they currently do. And we were able to pivot. We were able to meet the challenge of the pandemic and still really do great things with our students. I'm so proud of the Tigers here in Twinsburg because they continue to accelerate in the most unusual circumstances and are enjoying the opportunities that we're able to provide them with. And it goes beyond what happens in our classrooms or beyond what happens in the virtual academy. We have a full menu of extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities, as well as all of our athletic programs. And it's about being well-rounded when you graduate from Twinsburg High School and being prepared to do whatever your next happens to be. And because of the support of our community, we're able to do that. And so with the renewal of this levy, we won't have to consider reductions in programming, and we can continue to offer all these wonderful options for students and their families.
Well, and you're right. The district is in great shape. Hats off to you, the administrators, the staff. With only a few minutes remaining, talk about the great things that are going on that our tax dollars are supporting. I mean, every school has an award. It's an impressive district.
It really is. And, it's not so much about the shiny plaques on the wall, but it is about supporting students no matter what their needs are. It starts with our preschool programming. Our youngest Tigers can participate in either the integrated preschool program or the kindergarten preparatory program. So starting off on the right foot as a 3 or 4-year-old goes a long way to getting kids ready to graduate from Twinsburg High School. We're so proud of our special education programming, our gifted ed programming, The academy at Twinsburg High School has been revised this year because of the restrictions caused by COVID, but the programming there is preparing students for the workforce. And so we continue to be responsive to what our students need to be ready for whatever their next happens to be. And so it's all about that. It's also being able to be agile and nimble because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Thankfully, the Chromebook initiative was here. Thankfully, blended learning was here, and we were able to pivot out to remote and then back in for parents who wanted the option. And I guess we haven't said that very much. No, we have provided options for parents this year. We didn't require all kids to do any one thing, and giving parents options helped to ease some anxiety related to the pandemic. And it also gave us a greater opportunity to learn what it was like to operate a virtual academy, as well as our regular on-campus opportunities for students. And so, again, very grateful for all of the support our residents have offered over the years. And we're excited about what tomorrow is going to bring. We sure have learned a lot about operating in the pandemic, but there have been silver linings to all of this. And we just are encouraged by the support and look forward to moving the district forward.
Well, we are running out of time, but quickly before we go, I did want to mention, Marty, hats off to you. You've been in the district for just about 20 years, and I will say if there was a Hall of Fame for school district treasurers, I think you would have the bronze bust and be enshrined for sure. We're talking, you've been here for 20 years, and you've, for 20 years, Twinsburg has won the prestigious Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Recording and 10 times received the Auditor of State of Ohio Award. And that's fewer than 5% of all government agencies get that. So congratulations to you, and thank you for helping Twinsburg be, great stewards of their money.
Thank you.
And Kathi, hats off to you again. The last year and a half has had to have been crazy for you, the administration team, the staff, and parents and students. So I really think you guys have been sort of the heroes here after, first responders. So thank you for all you and your staff has done keeping our kids safe.
Thanks, Vince. It has been a team effort. Our kids, our parents, our staff have all worked together, and we are so proud of everyone. It's been a year we could never have imagined, but I think we have bonded together and have done awesome things and kept the students' health and safety at the very center of every decision. And again, we're grateful for everybody's support.
Real quick, what do you want to leave residents with? And tell us again what the renewal levy is on May 4th.
Right, the renewal levy is issue 6. It is the $5 million renewal levy for the Twinsburg City School District, and we really are very thankful for the support of our community members.
Well, thank you for joining us today and being transparent as always. We really appreciate it. And folks at home, thank you for watching. Please remember, no matter how you vote, it's a privilege to vote. So please go out and vote on May 4th. And keep your dial tuned to 1021 for all of your local programming, not just in Twinsburg, but in Nordonia schools and Aurora schools. And you can also catch all of this great local programming at mycommunityfocus.app.